Okay, I'm going to make show you another example of a value returning function using this sample program. So let me just review. I found a small typo on my previous version. Since the function average returns a double, this variable here, AVE, should be a double. And I had it as an integer in the previous example, and because the values I think were 20 and 40, the average was 30, it didn't make a difference. But if I ran it with values 5 and 6, I saw that the average was 5 instead of 5.5. So all I've done here is modified this a little bit to let the user enter values. Okay, so I just have cout and cin statements instead of assigning the values up here. So you can see in this example, the user says enter an integer value, they read in value 1, enter an integer value, you read in value 2, and then it calls the sum function, stores the result in total. It calls the average function with that total, stores that result in average, and then it displays the information out that we just saw on the screen. Well, as you can see, these two statements pretty much do the same thing. They prompt the user to enter an integer value. So this might be a good example of some code to put in a function and call twice. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to write a function called getValue. And basically the body of the function is just going to ask the user to enter an integer value, and I'll just put it in that variable there. And we're going to make it a value returning function. So we're going to return the value that the user enters. And value is an integer, so my return type is going to be an integer. Now in this case, you'll notice value has a red squiggly line under it. It's undefined. And that's because value is not going to be in the parameter list. This variable value is only going to be used inside of this function. So what I want to do is just declare it inside of the function. And now I have this function written, so my function will need a prototype. So I'll copy the heading, right? I'll paste the prototype and put a semicolon after it. And then in place of these, I'm actually going to execute two function calls to get value. Now remember, I need to store the result someplace. So value 1, assign the value of get value, and then value 2 is assigned get value. So I'm going to call that function twice. This is another good example of a value returning function. It returns one value back out. So what happens? Here's our variables are declared. This will call the getValue function. It'll jump down. It'll prompt the user to enter a value. It'll return the value back out and store it here. Then it'll execute the getValue function a second time, have the user enter a value, return the value back out. It'll be stored in value 2, and then we go ahead with our other two functions. So let's see how this works. And there we go. Okay, so another example of a value returning function. This one doesn't require any information from the main program, so the parameter list is empty. All right, but we still have a return statement and we still return a value back to main.